At 1:30 p.m, a mother called 911 to report that she had just shot her 4 daughters and that she was about to do something unthinkable.
Tonight we are learning new details about a Byron, Wyoming woman who shot and killed her 4 children.
17 years. 17 years at the sheriff's office and working crime scenes, and you don't ever expect anything like this. Clearing the home, I went back to the one little girl who was actually still alive and administered first aid to her. Held her, stood there with her till EMS arrived and took her and continued first aid.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie, and today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. Tranielle Lindsay Copeland had always been a fighter. Born on June 26, 1992 in Powell, Wyoming, she grew up in a large, close-knit family with countless siblings who adored her free spirit and determination. When Tranielle first married Quinn Blackmer, it seemed like she had found her happily ever after. The couple welcomed 2 beautiful daughters together, Braylee Shay and Olivia Elaine. But like many marriages, theirs began to unravel under the weight of unspoken grievances and incompatible dreams. By early 2020, divorce papers were being filed, and Tranielle found herself navigating the treacherous waters of single motherhood. Meanwhile, across town, Cliff Harshman was living his own quiet existence. He had known Tranielle back in their Powell High School days, though she was a couple of grades older, and they had never been close. In fact, Cliff admitted with a rueful laugh that he had been the ornery type that people warned others about. But time has a way of changing people, and by 2020, both Tranielle and Cliff were different versions of their teenage selves. Fate intervened in the most unexpected way. Cliff was recovering from COVID at his cousin's house, so weak that the only thing he could keep down all week was tequila. When his cousin's girlfriend brought a friend over, that friend turned out to be Tranielle. She greeted him with a simple hug and asked, "Hi, how are you?" But something in that moment sparked an instant connection that neither could deny. Their courtship was swift and passionate. Despite the complexities of Tranielle's ongoing divorce and her 2 young daughters, Cliff embraced not just Tranielle but her entire family. On July 26, 2020, just months after they reconnected, Tranielle and Cliff exchanged vows in Powell, Wyoming. But this wasn't just a love story between 2 people finding each other again. It was the beginning of a blended family that would soon face challenges no one could have anticipated. The early days of marriage brought both joy and unexpected heartbreak. In 2021, Tranielle suffered a miscarriage that left deep emotional scars. The loss was devastating, but she and Cliff found solace in their shared grief and determination to build a family together. Hope returned in February 2022 when Tranielle gave birth to their first daughter together, Brooke Celine Harshman. She was everything Tranielle had dreamed of. A perfect, beautiful baby who would complete their family. But Brooke came with challenges that no one had anticipated. She suffered from severe food allergies and refused to nurse, creating constant stress and worry for her new mother. What should have been the happiest time in Tranielle's life slowly transformed into something much darker. The sleepless nights, the constant worry about Brooke's health, and the overwhelming responsibility of caring for a difficult infant began to take their toll. Tranielle found herself sliding into postpartum depression, a condition that would grip her with relentless intensity. Within weeks of Brooke's birth, Tranielle discovered she was pregnant again. Jordan Basil Harshman would arrive when Brooke was barely walking, creating a household with 4 children under the age of 10. The pressure was immense. As Jordan grew, Tranielle's mental health continued to deteriorate. She began experiencing claustrophobia and overstimulation while nursing, symptoms that compounded her existing depression. But her struggles went deeper than postpartum depression alone. Tranielle was also battling post-traumatic stress disorder from an undisclosed past event, creating a perfect storm of mental health challenges that seemed insurmountable. In hindsight, the clues were there, but nobody could have imagined where they were leading. The family tried everything to help Tranielle find her way back to the light. She underwent various treatments over the years, desperately seeking relief from the depression, PTSD, and postpartum depression that had become her constant companions. Her medical team prescribed different medications, adjusted dosages, and explored alternative therapies. Among the treatments was ketamine, a drug typically used as an anesthetic but increasingly prescribed off-label for treatment-resistant depression and PTSD. Though the FDA had not approved ketamine specifically for mental health disorders, many doctors had begun using it as a last resort for patients who hadn't responded to traditional treatments. Tranielle was also prescribed clonazepam, commonly known as Klonopin, an anti-anxiety medication used to treat panic disorders and epilepsy. The drug's sedative properties could help calm her racing thoughts, but it came with serious side effects including paranoia, suicidal ideation, and impaired judgment. Cliff watched helplessly as his wife cycled through treatments, medications, and therapy sessions. He later told reporters that these medical interventions were Tranielle's last grasp at the rope to hang on. He desperately wanted people to understand that mental health treatment worked for many people, but for Tranielle, nothing seemed to provide lasting relief. The family's struggles extended beyond Tranielle's mental health. Cliff's work in the fluctuating natural gas industry was erratic, creating financial instability. Over the winter, Tranielle took a job in Powell, but the work environment proved toxic and created additional friction in their marriage. Perhaps most stressful of all was the ongoing custody battle with Quinn Blackmer. Though both fathers loved the children deeply, the legal proceedings created tension and uncertainty that weighed heavily on everyone involved. She brushed off the severity of her symptoms at the time, not knowing they would be her biggest mistake. By February 2025, the family had found a home they loved in Byron, Wyoming, a small town of just 562 residents nestled in the mountains. The house sat in a circular neighborhood with such beautiful winter trees, offering views of the mountains that had once brought Tranielle peace. Cliff had been spending most of the winter at home with his family, trying to provide stability during Tranielle's darkest period. But on February 7th, 2025, work called him back to Southern California. I was like, yeah, go back to providing, to feel successful for my family, again, he later told reporters. But it was at the wrong time. That decision would haunt him forever. The children, Braylee, 9, Olivia, 7, Brooke, almost 3, and Jordan, 2, were home from school with the flu on Monday, February 10th. It was the kind of normal, chaotic morning that happens in every household with young children. But for Tranielle, something had shifted. The combination of her medications, her mental state, and the overwhelming pressure of caring for 4 sick children alone created a perfect storm. Later, toxicology reports would reveal a chilling detail. All 4 children had unusually high amounts of propranolol and diphenhydramine in their systems, drugs that cause drowsiness. It appeared that Tranielle had given her daughters medication to sedate them before what came next. At 1:30 p.m., Tranielle picked up the phone and dialed 911. That phone call would be the last anyone heard from her alive. The 911 dispatcher who answered the call that Monday afternoon had no way of knowing they were about to become a witness to one of the most heartbreaking crimes in Wyoming's history. Tranielle's voice came through the line with an eerie calm that would later chill everyone who heard the recording. She reported, "Gunshots occurred inside my home, and my daughters have been shot." When the dispatcher asked about the status of the victims, Tranielle replied with devastating precision. She believed them to be deceased. With methodical detail, she explained exactly where first responders would find each child. 2 children would be located upstairs in their cribs, and 2 would be located downstairs in their shared bedroom, she stated. Then came the words that would echo in the dispatcher's mind forever. I could be found in my upstairs bedroom, and I was going to do the same to myself. The dispatcher pleaded with Tranielle to stay on the line until help arrived, but Tranielle's response was final. She couldn't do that, and it was too late. The line went dead. Officers from multiple law enforcement agencies rushed to the home on East Shoshone Avenue. Nothing in their training could have prepared them for what they would find inside. In the upstairs cribs, officers discovered 2-year-old Brooke Celine Harshman and Jordan Basil Harshman, both dead from gunshot wounds to the head. The scene was as devastating as Tranielle had described. 2 innocent toddlers who had been sleeping in their beds when their mother entered their room for the last time. Downstairs, in the bedroom shared by the older girls, officers found 9-year-old Braylee Shea Blackmer, also deceased from a gunshot wound to the head. But 7-year-old Olivia Elaine Blackmer was still alive, though critically injured with a severe head wound. In the master bedroom, they found Tranielle, unconscious but breathing, with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Emergency medical technicians immediately began working to save both Olivia and Tranielle. Both were transported to a local hospital before being airlifted to different facilities. Olivia to Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City, and Tranielle to a hospital in Billings, Montana. Bighorn County Sheriff's Deputy Kerry Angel, one of the first responders to enter the house, would later break down in tears describing the scene. 17 years at the sheriff's office and working crime scenes, and you don't ever expect something like this, she told reporters. It was as if time had frozen in the middle of an unimaginable nightmare. Meanwhile, 1,200 miles away in Southern California, Cliff Harshman was going about his workday when his phone rang with news that would shatter his world forever. In a matter of seconds, he learned that his wife had shot their children and herself, and that 3 of his daughters were already dead. The flight back to Wyoming felt like an eternity. Cliff's mind raced between disbelief, grief, and desperate hope that somehow this was all a terrible mistake. But when he arrived at the hospital in Billings, 12 hours after the shooting, the reality was inescapable. Tranielle lay unconscious under a heated blanket, machines keeping her alive while doctors assessed the extent of her injuries. At 1 a.m. on February 11th, a male ICU doctor approached Cliff with devastating news. Tranielle wasn't going to make it, but there was one final act of grace in this tragedy. Medical professionals planned to keep Tranielle alive throughout the day to prepare her organs for donation. Her heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, and spleen would go to 5 people in desperate need. Cliff sat by his wife's bedside, holding her hand that felt searing hot from the heated blanket. I sat and wept, and I cried to God, "Please forgive her. Help me forgive her," he later recalled. "I lost my best friend, my kids, everything." Meanwhile, in Salt Lake City, 7-year-old Olivia fought for her life with her biological father, Quinn Blackmer, by her side. For 5 agonizing days, medical teams worked around the clock to save her, but the damage to her brain was too severe. On February 15th, with Quinn holding her hand, Olivia gained her angel wings and joined her sisters. Quinn, who had been locked in a bitter custody battle with Tranielle and Cliff for years, found himself in the impossible position of grieving alongside the man he had considered an adversary. "There's no textbook. There's no playbook. There are very few people who have gone through this," he said. In a cruel twist of fate, the same day Olivia died, Tranielle's organs successfully saved 5 lives, creating a tragic symmetry that would haunt everyone involved. Perhaps the most unexpected development was the bond that formed between Cliff and Quinn, two fathers who had been courtroom adversaries now united in unimaginable grief. Cliff later said, "As angry as I may be with her, I still love her, and I still lost her as well," his voice breaking. "My wife was not a monster. I live with an immense amount of guilt for things that weren't said the night before," he told reporters. "I could have told her how much I loved her." Everyone lost everything. Broken lives scattered in the wake of one terrible February day when love wasn't enough to overcome the darkness.